A second stimulus check agreement is reached, but why has it turned into a game of Where is Waldo? Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is LALATE Afternoons. Hope you're great and safe. Afternoons LALATE starts every day at 3:30, starts with a check, then goes to hazard pay at 4 o'clock, then FPUC at 4:30, and finally rent assistance at 5. Big, great news Monday morning when we had confirmation about an agreement. Yes, an agreement on the second stimulus check. But as a lot of you have noted, no bill or law on the second stimulus check. Let me explain what's happening and why it's turned into a game of Where is Waldo, or where in the world is Carmen Sandiego. First, the second stimulus check is part of the second stimulus package. And that package has to be voted as a total capacity as one thing. But in that package is a lot of parts. And ironically, all those parts were agreed upon with the exception of one item, which I'll get to shortly. And there was an agreement about the check. And so the fact that there's an agreement for the check has not hurt the package. Rather, what's hurt the check is this other part in the package, a big bailout of states that has prevented a vote on your check that is in the package. Now, a lot of people asked overnight, okay, well, what's going on? I thought they've left town and there won't be a vote till September. Answer, no. I'm going to say to you very simply, the answer is no, but I'm going to explain to you the backstory right now. The backstory is the following, that Congress will reconvene within 48 hours of any agreement between Nancy Pelosi and Steve Mnuchin about the second stimulus package, namely the bailout of the states, and to get it agreed to after they've already agreed to the check. What am I talking about? Let me explain. This is not something we would normally talk about in our daily lives, the recess of Congress and coming back and going. It's turned into that sort of hot mess express. Congress has literally left town. Let's be literal about it. Left town. They've taken their private jets. They've gone home to Kentucky. That doesn't mean anything. I'm going to make it very clear to you right now. Doesn't mean anything. Well, first of all, you know it doesn't mean anything because they can get on the jet and come back. But the point is that there's two things at issue. One, Mitch McConnell, head of the Senate, and Nancy Pelosi, head of the House, has both said that when an agreement is reached between the Republican and the Democrat negotiators in the room, Nancy and Steve, that all members of Congress will be ordered back to Washington within 24 hours to effectuate a vote to make it a law and present it to the president to put on his table. Pretty simple. Now, what's important to understand is that even if there was not an agreement between Nancy and Mitch to do that and to order everyone back into town, the president has that authority as well. The Constitution allows the president to order members of Congress back in session to end a recess and to return back into town to vote on something. So bottom line is, I don't care that they're out of town. And a lot of people are confused by very bad broadcast news that say they're out of town, they're not going to do anything to September 13th. That's actually 100% incorrect. That's 100% incorrect because we have statements from both Mitch and Nancy that says, hey, and Steve also, and the president says, once there's an agreement, we're going to order Congress back into town. They're going to fly on their private jets. They're going to stop their Mai Tais. They'll be back into town. And within 24 hours, they'll vote on it. So I don't want you to look at a calendar and say, September, nothing's going to happen to September. Bull crap. I almost did it. I bit my tongue. I almost cursed. It's not going to happen. They will come back to town. So then we got that out of the way. We got all that nonsense out of the way. The next part of nonsense that you need to understand is there's an agreement about the check. The agreement about the amount of the check, the manner of the delivery of the check, the eligibility of the check, who's going to get the check, and when is it coming. All that's been agreed upon. So why don't I have my check, LALATE? Because your check's in this big bag of stuff called a package. And everything else in that bag has been agreed upon, with the exception of one item, a big bailout of states. And that bailout of states, Steve Mnuchin is willing to go to the mat for, and Nancy Pelosi is willing to go for the mat for. And we don't know as we sit here on a Tuesday afternoon, yeah, it's already becoming that week, whether or not that mat is going to move like a yoga move on the mat, upward down, downward dog, upward dog. We don't know if the movement on the mat is going to happen, but it's likely going to happen. And so I don't want you to sit here and think, oh, we're going to have no activity till September. Totally untrue. That is not how Congress works, and that's not how these parties have agreed to. And finally, this. Before sitting down to record, I just for a laugh opened up CNN, Fox, and 2 or 3 other channels. And they had the exact same quotes between Nancy and Steve. And one channel said, Nancy is winning the negotiations and Mark Meadows looks like a fool. And the next one said, Nancy is being torn up and Steve Mnuchin's winning everything. It literally was like it was like 2 referees that can't agree upon who's winning the Tyson Holyfield fight. It was so ridiculous. So I understand that a lot of people are saying, I heard on the news. I heard on the news. Well, yeah, there's a lot of bad news out there. Next, I'm going to answer this question because it's still coming up, and I didn't think I thought I'd killed it with a sword like I'm in Xena the Warrior or something. I have not seen the Warrior. But there are channels out there that are clickbait channels that are still this morning with the guy like this or like this with the title that says $2,400 stimulus check or $1,800 stimulus check or $33 trillion stimulus check. Those aren't true stories. And, you know, I'm not here to answer questions about other people's reporting, but, you know, stay with me. Just ignore that. There is one amount for the stimulus check, $1,200. I'm going to say it very clearly. So don't drop in the comments. I heard from my friend's neighbor's plumber's sister's brother the check is going to be $1,800. No, tell your friend's neighbor's plumber's nephew's sister's tailor. No, stop watching that stuff. It's $1,200. $1,200 for everyone. $1,200 for non-filers, $1,200 for filers, $1,200 for SSDI, SSI, Social Security, railroad benefits, $1,200 for adult dependents, $1,200 for minor dependents. The only 2 things that we absolutely categorically do not have etched in stone, and that's why I say it that way, because there's always the possibility that Nancy rolled over in her grave and gave away something, which I don't think happened, is that the Republicans wanted the dependents to be at $500. I don't think that happened because Steve said that they came together on stuff and said there was an agreement on this, and she said she was not going to agree to $500 dependents. So I just want to qualify. I think that the dependents are $1,200. Also, child support. Nancy's bill proposes that child support is not taken out of the second stimulus check, so that's likely where that's to land as well. The manner of delivery, I've done that before. I did that on Mornings LLA. Thank you for watching. That was really a lot of fun. Bottom line is that I don't care. Well, I do care that Mitch is at home sipping a Mai Tai, wherever he is, or wherever, you know, those lazy congressional leaders are. Their feet are in the jacuzzi, they're sipping their Mai Tai, and they have their employee staffs with no mask bringing them chicken and waffles while we're sitting here struggling to make ends meet, and they're just, you know, living in the lap of luxury on our tax dollar. It does bother me, but the point is that they're not staying there till September 14th. So they will and they can be ordered back if Steve and Nancy have an agreement. Now, the next step is a lot of this is going to sort of start to turn into, and I saw it in the questions, when are Nancy and Steve going to meet? Did Nancy and Steve meet? Did Nancy and Steve go to lunch? Did Nancy braid Steve's hair? At one point it becomes like, you know, okay, I can update you their little moves by the minute, but the more important thing is what did they agree upon? The most important thing is the statements by Steve Mnuchin about what they agreed upon. They agreed upon stimulus check. They agreed upon FPUC as a stock number, and all the way to December 31st, and that number is going to be somewhere between $400 to $600 a week. They agreed upon rent assistance, rent eviction moratoriums, has mortgage forbearance and rent aid, which is different. That's like rent grant. And they likely appear to have agreed to hazard pay, food stamps. Oh, I gotta say this one. I didn't bring the quote. This is sort of like the trash talking out there, which I really don't care to cover, but it was sort of funny in a sad way. There's one report out there that says Nancy Pelosi asked Steve Mnuchin for more money for food stamps, which a lot of viewers have asked for. And she used the technical term of what food stamps is, not food stamps, and used a few other words. And he said, what? What? Well, I'm being melodramatic about it. And so she said the man didn't even know what it was. He had to Google it on his phone. I like those stories, but it's trash talking. I'm not really here for that, but it is sort of funny in a sad way, along with Mark Meadows kicking furniture, which I sort of like the visual of. But that's that. The point is that they're getting back in the room sometime. They're not telling you when, which I think is sort of absurd. They're elected officials. We pay their salaries. Tell us if you have an appointment to meet with Steve Mnuchin. Tell us you have an appointment to meet with Nancy Pelosi. For Steve Mnuchin to say, I'm not going to tell you? What is this, the war room? Is this the situation room? Is this Cloak and Dagger? Is this Mission Impossible? I mean, this is not MacGyver. This is the stimulus check hour. I mean, come off of it. It's like, answer the friggin' asked question. When are you going to meet? If the answer is, we have not agreed to meet, then say you have not agreed to meet. Don't say, I'm not going to tell you. What is she like? It's not like you're going to meet your side chick, not that you have one, but it's like, come off of it. Tell us when you're going to meet, because that's now the major question of the people of this channel. We all know you're getting a stimulus check. We all know when you're going to get the stimulus check. We all know, I did the video this morning, that's you calculate how many days back from the date of delivery. It's 3 days for the processing time in your bank, 7 days for the Treasury to send the check to you electronically, 2 days for Congress to sit and meet and vote on the bill, 1 day for the president to meet. It adds up to about 13 days from the date at which Nancy and Steve emerged from their secret meeting on the side that no one knows about. When they emerged from their secret meeting, then it's 13 days from that date that you would get your stimulus money. I mean, we all know that. So don't hide from us the secret meeting. Now, let me get to something that's not so secret. What's not so secret is that the president has the inherent authority to order members of Congress back in session. Now, what makes this really more troubling, and I know you don't like, well, I think you do like scandals a little bit. This is also more scandalous, which is a news report that came out minutes ago reveals that none of this would have been necessary had they agreed to multiple stimulus checks. Boy. Had they agreed to FPUC not to expire in July, had they agreed for rent eviction moratoriums and mortgage forbearance not to expire in July. I don't care whether you call it deliberate or accidental or just ignorance, but they should have tied stimulus checks to unemployment. They should have tied stimulus checks to, they should have tied FPUC to unemployment numbers. They should have tied rent eviction and moratoriums to other economic data so they didn't expire. The new reports out today say that the president would have had the authority by executive order to send you a stimulus check right away, that the Congress could have sent out the stimulus, could have ordered the stimulus check had they had put in the bill multiple checks, had they had put in the bill not expiring on certain dates of July, but rather tied to economic numbers, then it would expire. And Nancy and Steve actually are now doing that. Oh, we'll do FPUC until unemployment improves. How come you didn't do it back in May, nincompoop? The point is that the sadness is you could have had stimulus checks every single month that you needed stimulus check, and the president would have sent it to you, likely. The Senate, the Congress would have sent it to you, likely, and now they can't. Because once an order expires, the president has no inherent authority. Because the first stimulus check was an expired order, it's now expired. A rent eviction moratorium, FPUC, all expired. They can't evoke it. So did they do it on purpose so that every time there was a check expiration date, they can go back and pad it with bailouts to states? You decide. Nancy Pelosi was interviewed by Joy Reid yesterday, and minutes ago also issued a statement about Beijing. Nowhere in there was really talk of why there's this bailout from states, and all it was talk about for feeding the hungry people of America, which Steve Mnuchin agreed to. But a lot of you are asking about Xavier Becerra's incredible decision yesterday. Attorney General of California got an incredible decision in the case of Uber and Lyft, which this channel first detailed. What's important about this decision is that the case actually calls for a victory and asks, if there's a victory, to pay Uber and Lyft drivers a big check. Yes. I don't know if you want to call it a stimulus check or what you want to call it, but it's a check. It's MOOLAH. The check was actually part of discussions of the Senate and House, and I detailed them back over a month ago, where they wanted to include a bailout to drivers of Uber and Lyft who they think were not paid sufficiently by Uber and Lyft under the pandemic's early weeks. The lawsuit claims, people ask me, LALATE, please talk about this lawsuit. I want to know about this lawsuit. This lawsuit's important no matter where you drive Uber and Lyft. The lawsuit says that Uber and Lyft, as you know, classifies you as an independent contractor. You get a 1099 at the end of the year if you make a certain amount of money. Otherwise, you're an independent contractor, understood to be an independent contractor. You don't get employment benefits. You don't get employment medical and health. You don't get any employment securities or any employment benefits required by law because they classify you as an independent contractor. Well, there's a leading decision in the Supreme Court many, many years ago that said, what is an independent contractor? What is a employee? And California sued Uber and Lyft with the city attorney here in Los Angeles, who I adore, know well, and also the city attorney in San Diego, won an injunction, temporary injunction, not the full case, but a temporary injunction ordering them to stop classifying you as independent contractors and start paying you as employees. The attorney general said the judge saw straight through the bogus argument. What worker doesn't want to have access to paid sick leave, says Becerra? What worker doesn't want to have unemployment insurance at the time of a COVID-19 crisis? What worker doesn't want to know that they're getting paid for overtime if they work 60 hours a week in a 12-hour day in a week? That's all the viewers of this channel are impacted. You're not impacted literally this minute if you're not in California, but if you are, the order becomes effective within 10 days. The 5 cities claimed that Uber and Lyft broke California's new law, which required gig workers to be treated as employees. You don't have to give up those rights and benefits to have flexibility. There's nothing in California law that requires a company to remove flexibility in order for those people to be classified as employees. It's illogical. Why does it take more than 10 years and a lawsuit for 2 innovative companies to come up with a new idea how to provide their employees with benefits they're entitled to? Uber and Lyft refused to comment to the article. What's important to understand is that the lawsuit claims that you are entitled to thousands of dollars in back pay, and that every Uber and Lyft driver, if this lawsuit prevails, would get a very fat check. Yes. In my Nene Leaks voice, a big check, darling, a big fat check. I think the check was somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000. It's a lot of money, and to get benefits going backwards and benefits going forward for medical health, overtime, and all that. It's a very big, major decision. It doesn't adjudicate the entire case. It doesn't give you the check right now, so please don't drop in the comments. When am I getting that check, LALATE? Am I getting that check tomorrow? No, just the first part of the case. So really fascinating. I will stay with it if you want me to stay with the story, because I saw a lot. I saw hundreds of comments about this in overnight. Next, how far can these parties really negotiate for? And why is Steve Mnuchin going to the mat for states when he didn't go to the mat for airlines? Here's the backstory of the backstory. You all understood the scandal I unfolded yesterday, where the negotiations have fallen apart. You have not gotten your check because there's this big bailout of states that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats won in there, $1 trillion for states to give money to their citizens who they've already laid off, to their citizen employees who they already laid off and didn't use the pandemic money the first time around. In that reporting over yesterday, I explained that during the first round, the governors, cities, and counties across the country asked the federal government and got from the federal government a big bailout, pleading to them that they needed money to pay their employees. They got the money and they didn't pay the employees. They fired them. Overnight, I saw hundreds of comments from you that said that happened to me. I was fired. I worked for the local government. I was fired. They got the money. I didn't get a penny. I got fired, or I got early retirement or termination or things like that. Well, what's fascinating now on the backstory is that Steve Mnuchin's willing not to reach a settlement agreement with Nancy Pelosi about this, but guess what? He's willing to give a bailout to airlines a second time around after he claims the airlines did the exact same things to you. Yes. See, I always leave the best stuff for last. That's what I gotta say to the end of the video. Airlines got a massive bailout the first time around, and that bailout of money was to provide employment security money to employees of airlines. They didn't. They laid them off. Early retirement got them off, kicked them to the curb. So just a few weeks ago, the airlines went back to the Republicans and said, give us a lot of money again. Steve Mnuchin and Mitch McConnell said, why should we give you a lot of money again? You didn't use it the right way. Well, guess what? The Republicans, including Steve Mnuchin, put that bill of bailout back in there. Bottom line is, why is Steve Mnuchin going to the mat to not do a second bailout of states, but is doing a bailout for airlines? And why, and this is the really bigger issue, and this is the one that everyone can understand, including you and I. If you're worried about giving money to states the second time around and they're not going to use it in a proper way, why not just make the money contingent on certain things, or keep the money in the Treasury and audit them, or only release it when they do certain things and don't release it as a big vacuum? Steve Mnuchin has been very, very criticized nationally for just sending out money and then afterwards saying, oh, you didn't use the money the way I intended you to use the money. Whether it was the Lakers or Harvard Business School's cafeteria or Shake Shack, he's just accused of sort of sending out money and then backtracking and said, that's not what I meant. And they said, well, you didn't make it clear, Mr. Mnuchin. You didn't say we couldn't use it this way. Well, bottom line is, you could have your second stimulus check today. You could have your FPUC money today. Had Mnuchin really figured out in his mind a way to ensure that there's no second bailout of the states by drafting the provisions clearly so they just don't get the money rather than saying no deal. A lot of twisting turns. More than a bad circus ride at the Texas Fair. Coming up next is hazard pay, then FPUC, and then later rent assistance, evictions, and all that wonderful stuff. Please go to the Funnest channel. There's a subscribe button there. You'll see the button, and it's important to hit it and hit the alert button next to it because this story is ever unfolding. You see I'm running up at 21 minutes. I don't even like to record over 15 minutes. There's a lot happening in a given day, and sometimes it may not even make it to recording. So please hit that button. Thank you for the wonderful comments overnight. Please stay motivated. Please stay inspired. And finally, one last moment of personal reflection. It's very difficult at times like this to stay focused and motivated, and I understand that. But please try to stay with a level of spirits up. I will help you, and we'll get to the end. As always, stay of LA for more.